the MITM Business Consultants
comes Man in the Middle, your one-stop shop for financial tips and tricks that big banks and corporate America won't teach you
and don't want you to know.
Discussing the latest and greatest products, services, skills, and habits to grow and support the financial needs of your business and you. Giving you the knowledge to help make your own important choices for your business and you.
Disclaimer: Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast.
Now, here is your Man in the Middle, with 10 years of experience in the financial and banking industry, Art Abrahamian.
What's going on, everybody? This is Man in the Middle, episode 3. I'm here with George once again. George, what's going on?
Nothing much, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a lovely Saturday. We're in the office right now.
It's a beautiful Saturday.
It's a beautiful Saturday. And we're a little bit behind. So we're a week behind on this one. So immediately after this one, I think we're going to go ahead and do another one. So if you guys see us in the same outfit in the next one, it's because we're going right back to back.
Back to back, baby.
Today's topic is going to be budgeting. That was chosen by one of our members. And you know, we wrote out a little bit of something that would help a lot of our viewers, not just on the business side, but on the personal side too. So that's what we're going to get into is the budgeting rules. So the primary aspect of today is going to be covering 50-30-20. So I don't know if you've ever heard of that rule.
Never.
So 50-30-20 means 50% on what you need, 30% on what you want, and 20 goes to savings. So that should be 100% of your income and how you budget it. That's just a rule of thumb. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions about proper ways of spending and budgeting and more because you have an income and you're supposed to allocate certain things to it, right? Like the rule of thumb for personal living is like 50% supposed to go to mortgage or rent, 30% no more than 30 in your car, and then 20% for like bills and utilities and savings and stuff. So a lot of people don't know that rule, so they end up doing
the opposite.
Where it's like, and we know a couple people.
I know I do.
We know a couple people who have $1,000 car payment.
Yep, we sure.
And
do.
they only make, $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
So it's like they're working to own that car. Mm-hmm. And that kind of stuff is like okay when you're young, but it's stupid too.
It's a stupid decision.
It's a very stupid decision. And a lot of the times we've come across individuals who are like, my kid just doesn't get budgeting. And I go, well, he doesn't have to because he doesn't pay bills. He doesn't have the concept of what that's truly going to mean going in the near future. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's habits that parents either don't teach kids or they don't learn it in schools. So as they grow up, like a lot of our business owners are really, really smart people. But this information that we teach them when we have our one-on-ones and our podcast, that's not something they covered in school.
I don't think they ever talk about money in school.
No, and if they do, it's not really in depth.
Yeah.
Whereas like...
They make it seem like it's a touchy subject. Huh?
Right. They make it seem like it's a super touchy subject. Yeah. And then you have to really think about it too, where it's like, nobody comes out of school knowing about taxes. Nobody comes out of school knowing how to pay bills.
I know I didn't.
No one does.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that my parents put me in a business school.
Did they?
Yeah, my high school. Wow. I went to a public high school, but the high school was piloting this program, and we had our own classes. It was called the Business Academy, and we had our own classes. We had our own teachers.
Is that something your parents paid for?
No, it was a public school. But
okay.
when they were like, "What do you want to do?" Because I kept my parents in the loop and I respect their decisions and stuff. And I said, there was like a health academy. There was, and that was for people who want to be like nurses and doctors or in the medical field, and they wore scrubs every day. And then there was the Business Academy, and those were people who wore suits every day. So from the age of like 11, 12, you get ready, go into high school. By 14, I was wearing suits every single day.
Wow. You're
to
one
work.
of those, huh?
No, not even to work. I'm sorry, to school, and it was a cool concept because it was the class itself was like a company, and the name of the company was called Smart Tech, and you had to apply for your role. So my first 2 years, I was like an admin in IT or whatever, but then my last 2 years, I became the CEO of the company, and I had to manage the students. The teacher was there in case I had questions, but I had to give them the grade, I had to give them the work, I had to keep them on track, and I thought it was great, and I thought that should be standardized everywhere.
So let me ask you this. I know you had mentioned before you were working at the bank.
Yeah.
I think you were, what, 16, 17?
No, I was 18, 17 and a half, 18 when I officially went to the bank.
Yeah, okay.
And it wasn't crazy for me to make that transition, like coming out of high school and then going into college.
Got your feet wet.
Yeah, because like I already kind of had an understanding of this stuff. Yeah. But it's like it's unfortunate because a lot of our clients either know this stuff or they just never been taught, and it leads for them to put a threshold on their success because of the lack of information. So that's where we come in and we help iron out these details. But 50% of needs, I mean, if we're looking at what that means.
Yeah, so, break it down for us because I think our viewers want to know what we're talking about here.
So needs get categorized, and I have everything written out here. So needs are included in like monthly rent, electricity and gas bills, transportation, insurances, loan repayments, and just like basic expenses like groceries and whatnot. And then you have your 30% on wants. And wants are like dining out, clothes, holidays, gym membership, entertainment, and groceries, other than the essentials. So if you're like, tonight's steak night, that's not an essential, right? Like that's a want.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you have your 20%. That's money for savings. So that's money that you should be setting aside in case of a rainy day. Now, these categories, the 50, 30, 20, apply to not just personal living, but business living too.
Okay.
It's just what you're using it for is slightly different. So if you have an office rent, 50% categorized in office rent, right? It wouldn't be a mortgage, or it'd just be a lease. Or if you own the building, it'd be your commercial mortgage. A lot of what we see too is people not budgeting accordingly to invest back into their company. So like me personally,
I think very common
that they don't? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super common. And it's unfortunate. So like, we don't want to toot our own horn here, but we make adjustments immediately thereafter. And like even going from our first podcast to our second podcast, when we had like the background of the computer that we're using, and then we looked at it and we're like, that we didn't think about that. And that's okay.
It's okay. We're improving.
Right. It's like every day we should be getting better because nobody starts at the best possible level they can. However, there are a lot of people, and unfortunately, I've seen it from business to business where their concept of budgeting means not spending any money, and it doesn't help them. And
digs them in a hole.
Yeah. Well, it's not digging them in a hole financially per se, because some of them who don't spend money are just keeping it all for themselves, which is great. You're building that nest.
But you're limiting yourself growing.
Yeah, right? It's like now you're limiting your growth, and that's a problem too, because it's like there are a lot of businesses out there that know they have an issue. I know that's been leaking for months. I know that's been a problem for weeks, and they don't do anything about it. The sense of urgency is not there because they see it as an expense rather than an investment. So it's like, it's your business. If you're not going to care about it, who will?
And this is why it's important to have a financial advisor.
Yeah, because a lot of our clients who are on our membership program, we get calls from them all the time, and we're like simple things, right? But it's okay. That's what we want them to do. We're not opposed to that. That's why we started this business, because people just didn't have a person to bounce ideas off of for just even the smallest things. If you really think about it, like the other day we had a client call in and goes, "Hey, I'm sitting at the dealership right now, and I'm buying another truck for my business, and I just wanted to ask you, like, what do you think?" And I was like, I think you could do better. And I think you should go shop around and take their quote and take it somewhere else, because it just didn't seem like they were doing their best during your business. So the guy does that, and he ends up saving like $400 a month by just switching just in the rate and the price alone. You know, he was like, man, I honestly just didn't even want to bother going anywhere else because I was just assuming it would happen. I said, no, you don't need to worry about that. I mean, that's what we're here for. But the point is just, it's one thing to shop around for a better deal. It's another thing not to spend money at all. And, you know, I know this is about budgeting, but there's a level of budgeting, meaning like you're supposed to budget your money so you can spend some of it. Not budget your money so you don't spend any of it. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short. It's like if you know there's something wrong with your business and it doesn't matter, even if it's not a core portion, it should still be, if not a little bit better, fixed, up to date. Like if you identify these issues, then you need to fix them. And if you don't identify the issues, then maybe you need somebody like us to help you identify these issues because you're missing out. I mean, the perception that you may have of it versus a person walking in. You used to work at you're still a trainer now, but you work at a local fitness.
I do a little private gym.
Yeah. Okay, great. I remember going in there and the ceiling's leaking water around all kinds of electrical stuff.
Yeah.
We had OSHA I was like, dude, these are OSHA violations like nobody's business. And their solution was a bucket.
Yeah.
And people walk around it. Be careful, you know. Death looming over your head, but we're not going to fix that because we don't got the money to do that, which is BS. You do have the money to do that.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to spend. And then this is a good topic to talk about because that's a great example.
Right. It's like part of your budget needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
If the word need comes in front of it, well, guess what? It's part of that 50%. I don't want the ceiling to be fixed. I need the ceiling to be fixed. So I'm going to go ahead and allocate portion of my budget so that I can fix it. Now, let's say it's over what you expected. That's where your 20% comes in. And what do we do with 20%? We save it. So if there's a 50% category of a need, but the finances aren't there, that's where our 20% is supposed to come in and take care of it. Now, I even have some people who go, you know what? I'd rather do 50, 20, 30. 50% needs, 20% wants, 30% savings. Great. If you can do that, fantastic. I think that's even a better ratio. But the point is, like, know the difference between budgeting and cheaping yourself out and hurting you in your business. And just you as an individual. You see those people, I don't get it. They drive a brand new car that the window's busted out and they fill it with saran wrap. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I see it all the time.
I don't get that.
Yeah.
It's like when that rock flies through...
It's going to happen.
Yeah, when that rock gets kicked up and flies through your saran, like, come on, man.
Yeah,
like, go. Yeah. That's a need. You need to go fix that. You need to go fix that. It's not a want. That's not a thing you take care of later. It just blows my mind. Like, I don't understand things like that. Like, me personally, I think living below your means is another really important thing. And I know a lot of people, you know, some do, some don't. And the reason I think it's really important is like my wife and I, we lived below our means on purpose. We could have had where we could have afforded an $800,000 home.
Yeah.
We decided to get a $270 because it's just us and our daughter. And it's like, okay, could we have gotten a bigger home? Absolutely. Did it make sense? No, because things happen. Life happens. The concept of how we did what we did was, well, if one of us gets sick or if the economy takes a dump and one of us loses our job, what then? It's like my role got eliminated, right? And then I was like, great, okay, cool. I wasn't stressing about it. That was the beauty of it. That's what led me to start this business, because I wasn't stressing about the finances of things because I had pre-planned it. I saw it coming. I was seeing department after department next to me just crumble. And, you know, corporate America is no joke, man. They're savages. I mean, they are really ruthless people. I have a story actually where I had a guy that was in our payroll division, and this is at the time when the bank was still offering its own payroll before they outsourced it to another company. And they had an annual meeting talking about all the great things that are coming and the changes and how profitable they are and the new policies in place that are coming, and everybody was super excited. And then the following morning, I think that was a Friday, that Monday, they came into the office and were told going forward, where we sold off this payroll to another company, and none of you have jobs. I'm sorry.
Yep.
And
Cut
you
positions.
don't even answer your clients' calls. If they do, just say, you know what, I'm not sure what's going on. We're getting a new transition into a different team. They'll be contacting you.
Wow.
And the company that they hired to do it, it's not a bad company, but the company that they hired to do it was one of our competitors. So they passed over the book of business to one of our competitors who purchased it. No kidding, signed a client onto our services, our in-house services, because they hated that company.
Wow.
And then so I signed him like on a Thursday, Friday, and by Monday he's getting a call telling him he's going right back. And he calls me, he goes, you sons of bees, like,
Wow.
I switched from them for a reason, and you guys tell me you just sold your entire business to them. I'm like, I didn't even know this was coming. I'm like, I promise you.
You got chewed out for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I got chewed out by a lot of people, and it's like, they didn't tell us what was happening. That was such a secret hush-hush. Nobody knew except the people at the top. So it just goes down to, like, even when you think things are going good, they can change in a flash. And when they do change, it's like you have to be ready to adapt. Because if your business can't adapt to change and the new times, and you're not going to make it.
Yeah, you're going to set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You know, Sears is a perfect example of that. So
That was a big company, man.
that was America's first large chain store. That was the oldest store in the history of this country. And there was a point where it was Sears versus like Circle K. And then they had
Or
merged.
Sears versus Macy's.
No. This is even before Macy's.
Oh, wow.
This is like in the beginning of the era of like these department stores.
Okay.
Sears was the number one store. They ended up merging with another big company, Circle K. Circle K is not just a gas station, it's an actual store. So they had merged organizations. And Sears was the number one store in the United States. It was the oldest store, and it was the number one store because it was so large. Well, then, Walmart comes in, takes a little bit of the market share, and then Target comes in and takes a little bit of the market share, and then Amazon comes in and just really shakes up the game. And a lot of people give Amazon slack, and I'm not talking about the way that they treat their employees because I've been on top of that, but that's another conversation. That's actually going to be our next, not our next one, but we're going to talk about employee retention in one of the future.
Yeah, that's a good topic to talk about because I feel like there's a lot of controversy when it comes to Amazon.
Aside from all the controversy on how they treat their employees, let's just talk about like the fact of the matter is I now expect to get my package in 2 days.
Me too.
Like if I don't get something that quick, I'm like, what's the delay? Because I know that it's doable. Mm-hmm. In the day of technology that we're in, like I'm still waiting for the day that when I place the order, it's like there within the hour or two. Like that's my goal that I'd like because I want it to keep up with me now. Whereas I had to be patient for it. Now I want it to be patient for me. And that's just what comes with innovation. As things become better and stronger and whatnot, that's what it does. But going back to this story, so what happens? Amazon starts taking market share from everybody. Walmart and Target notice this, and they make adjustments and changes, and they start offering 2-day shipping. And because if you notice, if you order on Walmart, it tells you it'll do 2-day shipping. It tells you on that in Target too. And they started making adjustments and they started updating themselves. Target's so advanced now that it works with your smart fridge and they utilize the camera on the inside of your fridge to determine if they need to bring you more stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I saw a little bit of it and it was pretty intense where it's like if you're down on milk, it'll like scan the thing and then send you milk. It'll automatically send it if you want it to do that service. Wow. And that's great. I know people are like, oh, they've got a camera. It's like, what is going on inside your fridge? You're worried about if it has a camera. Like, that's not this topic either. We're just talking about innovation.
Yeah.
And
we don't want to get into the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is not political. Maybe down the road we'll make one of those. But given what we're at now, it's just, like, if you think about it, Sears did nothing because they thought they were too big to fail. They were like, we're the original. We're the OG. Nobody can take us on because we've been around the longest. And that was their biggest problem. That's why they went bankrupt. And Target and Walmart stock prices soared up and they do even more business than they ever did because they got with the times. And how did they do it? Because they had the money to do it. They have a reserve. Walmart, Amazon, Target, all these companies have a reserve, but it depends what they spend it on. And there are teams in research and development that literally that's their job, to figure out what they need to research and what needs to be developed and what they're doing and how they can make it better. And it's like, it's great to want to innovate, but you have to be able to support it financially too. And you won't be able to support it financially if you can't afford it. So that's where budgeting is super important. You know, from a personal level, the member that requested this had a lot of like very serious things happen to him and his family. And the concept of saving money and budgeting was always in his head, but because there was no chain of events that led him to this, other than, you know, he lost a few members in his family and to tragic accidents, and it really opened up their eyes, like the importance of it. Because now not only are they dealing with grieving, but they're also dealing with the financial implication of it too. Like when we meet with clients, George, one of the first things we ask is like, do you have a will and do you have life insurance? And if that's a no, I don't know what to tell you. Like everybody should have those two things. Everybody should have those two things. We sit down with clients and we'll ask them, do you have a will? And go, no. I go, do you have young kids? Yeah. Okay. What do you think is going to happen to your kids if you pass? Oh, well, they're just going to go to their grandma. No, they're not. It doesn't work like that. It goes to the county first. The county's going to come grab those kids and try to figure out who's the appropriate parent or the guardian to put them with. People are like, well, that's not what I want. Go, great. Then go make a will. That's how that works. It's not what you want. I get that. A lot of people are like, that's not going to happen. Yeah, it happens every time. It was funny. We were sitting with a client on Wednesday or Thursday, and his wife works for the county. And I asked them, do you have a will? And they said no. And I said, how old are your kids? She goes, they're all over 18. I said, okay, great. I said, so you already know what happens. She's like, yeah. She's like, a lot of people think that they just go to the grandma or grandpa, but no, they come.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. It may work like that in your head, but it doesn't work like that on paper.
That's funny.
So
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like being prepped for the unknown. Being prepped for the unknown is super important. And you know, whether you want it to be 50% needs, 30% savings, 20% wants, or if you want it to be 40% needs. I mean, the ratio is up to you, but the goal is needs have to be higher and savings can be higher than wants, but that's up to you. A lot of people are like, I like to save, but I don't want to not enjoy life either.
Mm-hmm. There has to be a balance,
There's
right?
a balance. And it's like, I never understood why people who do like family trips put themselves in debt to do them. And I understand that it's like memories you're with your kids.
What's the best way to prepare yourself for a family trip?
Save. If you know that, like,
I've heard a lot of, different alternatives, like, for example, using your credit card and then paying off your credit card after you use it.
yeah, well, that's different. That's like if you have the money in cash, I think putting it on a credit card is smart
Would be ideal. Yeah.
because you can earn money back on it. Like you'll get your cash back for spending.
But if you have the money to...
That's if you have the money
Okay.
too. But if you don't have the money to, just because your card has a $10,000 limit doesn't mean you have $10,000 to pay it.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? And you could have all the money in the world. I know people who make $200,000 a month and they're broke because of their spending habits. One of our clients, that's his problem. $200,000 a month is what he makes for not doing anything. It's through royalties.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
And I give him crap all the time. I'm like, this doesn't work. And I told him I was going to talk about him. He said, that's fine. Just don't use my name. I said, that's fine. We don't use that names in the...
Yeah.
But the point is, like, he just spends way too much money, buys people clothes, cars, houses, and we just got it barely through his head. Like, hey, man, you can't be doing that. Like, they're only, it's so convenient that they're your best friends when you buy all these things.
And I feel like here in the Western society, we all have the tendency of just spending and spending because we're materialistic. Let's be
Yeah, that's
honest.
the problem. Like, we're super materialistic people, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, cutting away from that's not,
It's not easy,
it's not easy, no.
but I think it's doable,
Yeah.
right? So
Well, because people always ask, like, I don't understand, how did you save so much money only making, you know, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year? And it's like, because I don't buy crap.
Mm-hmm.
I buy stuff
that you need.
that I need, and then if there's something that I want, I make it my one big purchase of the year. Like, I have a full-size arcade cabinet in my house.
I've seen it. It's cool.
I know. It's a 6-foot arcade cabinet.
Yeah.
I've always wanted those. Ever since I came to this country, I was like, I want one of these.
That's right. You weren't born in America, right?
No, I was born in Armenia, and I'm like,
That's right. For those of you who don't know.
and
Yeah.
when I was young, my mom used to take me. That was our treat because we didn't have a lot of money growing up either. But my parents, I don't know how my parents did it because we didn't have a lot of money growing up. But my parents I never didn't have anything because of them, which was insane. And that was probably through credit card debt and here and there and that, all that too. But they did a really great job because they gave us a lot when we didn't have a lot.
They provided a roof
Yeah.
over your head.
And seeing where they've come now, I'm super proud of them because they chased the American dream and made it. Now they're both business owners too, so it's really great. But and they've been for decades now. But the point being, like, that arcade cabinet is something that I always wanted.
Yeah.
So that was more of like a need/want.
You
I
treated
really
yourself.
wanted
There's
it,
nothing wrong with that.
but I needed it because I was in a position where I could finally do it, and it was more of like a fulfilling personal thing.
Yeah.
And like when we have our parties at the house and you come over,
Yeah.
that's the center of attention for a lot of people. The kids love to play on it. People love to play on it. I mean, the point is, like, that was what I always wanted. And I saved for it. And in grand scheme of things, it wasn't that crazy. Like, it was like $2,200 for the
Once a
whole thing.
year? Come on.
Not
There's
even
nothing-
once a year, one
nothing wrong
time.
with that. Yeah.
But, and that's a lot. Like, it's a lot for what it is, especially when you're an adult and you're like, what do you want? I was like, I want
Yeah.
80,000 games. In a
80,000
6-foot
games.
in
That's
a
lot of
6-foot
games.
arcade cabinet. It's a 4-player one with the guns and everything.
Yeah.
But the point being, like, I really wanted that. That's one of my passions. Like, I'm a huge gamer. That was from, I've just always been. And I don't party. I don't drink too much. I don't smoke anything. So it's like once in a while I have a cigar. So it's like that's my escape.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I'm a super nerd, right? I mean, I have my comic book collection, I have my graded comics, but those to me are more like investments. Because when I purchase those things, I look at them from a market standpoint. When I buy them, I try to buy them cheap, and a lot of them have appreciated like crazy. Like in a small box, I probably have like 20 grand worth of
Wow.
graded comics.
That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah. But I like that stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like I've found a way to save for my passions because I don't spend money on an extravagant car. Like prior to the family wagon, not even a wagon, but my new car, it's like
Yeah.
I had a 700 horsepower
Mustang 5.0.
Mustang 5.0 back when it first came out, the Stage 3s,
Yeah.
the 2018s. And that payment
That
was
thing was
like,
nice.
it was nice. It was great. But there came a point where it's like that car, the gas, that car was like $700 a month at 0% too, because I have when I was at the banks, I had a client who worked at Ford. He was an executive. So he hooked me up because he had the largest Ford dealership in the United States.
Wow.
He hooked me up. I mean, he took 20 grand off the car. He gave me 0%. That was just because he really liked me. That car payment with 0% was still like $750. $700. My gas, I was filling up gas every other day because I was only getting like 10 miles to the gallon, and the thing had like 190 miles to the tank.
Yeah.
So I'm spending $50 every other day. The insurance wasn't bad. It was like $120. George, that car costed me more than my mortgage cost me now. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was at a point where it's like I was still no kid, no relationship, and I was doing good financially, and I didn't spend on much. So I was like, that's gonna be my
Your
my toy. But I'm gonna make sure that I don't spend anything crazy outside of there. And I didn't. But then it came a point where it's like things changed. We're expecting a child, got into a relationship, great. I'm like, okay, well now it's time to sell. So I sold it. Actually, I lemon lawed it because it was because it was I was having electrical issues at like 20,000 miles.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
So I lemon lawed it, got all my money back, went and bought a Honda that could seat enough people.
It's nice too.
Yeah, and actually I
really nice
bought that car before we even knew we were expecting, and then like 2-3 months later, surprise,
It just worked out in your
and
favor.
it just worked out in my favor because I
awesome.
looked at it like, well, I don't really need another sports car because I want to buy another home. Because it's like now my mentality finally shifted from like,
Yeah.
I had my fun, it's out of my system, but now it's time to buy appreciating assets, not depreciating assets.
And honestly, a home is way better than a car.
Most definitely. If you can have both, good for you.
Yeah.
But again, they're just with budgeting and everything, like I knew what the plan was. Like I think the most important thing for people to realize is if you're going to budget, Have a plan. Have a plan. Your plan can change. That's okay.
And how do you write out your plan? Or is this something that, you know,
Write
is
it
based
down.
off
Write
of-
down what's your goal. Like if your goal is to take your family to Hawaii,
Okay.
then you should have that goal before the year even starts that you're ready to do it. Right? And then find the day that you want to go. So if you want to go in September and you know it's, what are we in? We're in November now?
Yeah.
Okay, so from November to September, we have that time frame. Great. You better start saving now. And what you're doing is research, right? How much is it going to cost me? How much are flights? What is the average cost of food? What is the average cost? So you know that this trip is going to cost with tickets, with food, with leisure, with everything, $6,000, $6,000 to $7,000. Great. Now you're going to look at what you bring home a month. Whether you're a business owner or an employee, it doesn't matter. It stands the same. How much money do you need to put aside to be able to afford it? Or at least the bulk of it. It's one thing if you're like, you know what, I'll have $5,000 paid and I'll have $2,000 left over. Fine. Is that really wise? No, but if that trip is that important to you because family time is important, then great. Go ahead. But you have to have a plan for that $2,000, right? But that's where the danger of things happen is because you have 2,000, then you come back, something big happens, and now that 2,000 turns into 10. So you don't expect that, but that's an additional 2,000 on this problem that's in front of you. But the point is, if you can save for it in time, I always say budget your trips ahead of time.
Okay.
Buy your tickets early, you get them cheaper. It's just when you do things last minute, it never works out in your favor.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What advice can you give to someone who works one job full time, you know, check to check, has a lot of liability, or not liabilities, but a lot of expenses, and it's really difficult for them to save money? What advice can you give them? Because I know this is very common.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
most Americans.
it's like 70% of the population
Yeah,
lives
live-
paycheck to paycheck.
Exactly. So
And you're a slave to your paycheck when you live like that.
yeah. How
Because
do you get out of that hole?
Well, it depends it's not how you get out, it's how you got in. You're looking at ways out, but you're not evaluating how you even got there in the first place.
So self-reflection.
Yeah, I mean, reflection, you have to look at yourself and your situation and ask yourself, how did I get here? Because getting yourself out is a whole different issue, but how did you even end up here in the first place? And if it's because your car payment, like the people that we know, are $1,500 because, you know, the 1,000 horsepower
Yeah.
special edition, like, great. But you now are a slave to your paycheck, and your paycheck only pays a car. So if you can't self-reflect and realize that car is the issue and you need to find a way to get rid of it, and I don't know who's going to help you. You see what I'm saying? That, like, until you know what the issue is and how to identify it, everything around you won't get better.
Okay.
Because how do you fix something you don't know the issue?
Right.
You don't. That's where it comes down to. It's like, how do I get myself out of a hole when I don't even know what caused it?
I'm going to use the analogy of a mechanic when they have to find a part that is, you know, not working.
Right.
They'll go back and test it out, see the way it's running. You kind of have to take a few steps back to see where you're messing
Yeah,
up,
like you
know?
run a diagnostic,
Yeah.
right, on the car to see what's reading the wrong codes.
Yep.
You have to diagnose your finances too. Where are you spending too much? You know, like a lot of the time, we sit with people and they have had the same insurance for years. They have had the same companies for years. They've had the same phone provider for years, and they get comfortable with it. And we'll ask them, when was the last time you had your insurance requoted? Well, I've never. Okay, great. So let's do that. And what happens when you do that? You end up finding out that you actually could save $100 a month by going somewhere else.
I'm just learning something new. I didn't know about this.
That?
I didn't know about this.
Yeah. Like, here's a great example. My brother, when we went golfing last week, and what was this week? We went golfing on Thursday, and we went to the AT&T store because he needed another line for his business. And the woman who added another line told us our plan is old. Because I'm guilty of it. Because who thinks to go to their AT&T and check that stuff? And she goes, "You're in an old plan. If I upgrade your plan, you're going to pay $110 less with this new line." And I'm like, what? Why am I just finding out about this?
But there's no catch.
No, there was no catch.
Okay.
It's just it's such an old plan, and we got HBO Max for free. And I read through it. I read through every line of that because I was like, dude, there's no way
Right.
that I could save $100+ a month, plus get HBO Max for free, plus my brother's phone and the new line for $140 less. And I'd read it. I'm like, holy crap, this is really. We've been paying $140 for God knows how long over.
If you don't mind me asking, what company?
That was AT&T.
It was AT&T?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like things like that. Like go back and audit. You call. Hey, is there a better price package? Is there? And if you were to do that once every 6 months, it takes you 10 minutes to call this company and ask them. You could potentially save yourself thousands
Wow.
a year. So like going back to our budgeting portion, take that money you're saving. If you were used to an $800 car payment and now it's a $400 car payment, make the $800 car payment. But you're going to take the $400 that doesn't need to go to the car and you're going to put it in an account. Continue. You were fine living that way before. You were making it. So great. Now I want you to take that extra and I want you to put it away. And that's the difference. Is people think if they made more money, they'd be able to save more money, and it's not the case.
That's not the way it works.
If you have bad spending habits when you make no money, you're going to have bad spending habits when you make a lot of money. Because that is a habit. Doesn't matter how much of it is. If you can't save money, you can't save money, whether you make $1 million or $1,000. And we see it all the time. People go broke making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s a month because they spend more than they make. The old adage is, how do you go broke making $100,000 a year?
I have no idea. By
Spend
spending
$150.
a lot of money.
Yeah, spend $150.
Yeah.
and you'll do it. You'll do it successfully. So things like that, tips like that are really important. Is go back and call your insurance company and ask them, is there a better quote? And if not, quote around. I'll say, hey, the house insurance that I have, how much is it going to cost me a year? And they'll say, you know what, we'll do it for $200 less a year. Great. Those add up. If you were to do that with just the basic stuff that you do, let's think about it. You have your phone and internet. Mm-hmm. You have let's do it separately. Your phone, your internet, your cable, your insurance, your house insurance, your renter's insurance, liability, workers' comp. The point is like you have all these avenues, and I just named off 8 things. Well, if I could save $200 a month in one, or if I could at least save $500 to $1,000 a year in each of those things, I just made $8,000 a year in savings. Wow. And all I did was make a slight adjustment.
Wow. Sounds like something I have to do.
You remember when we were talking in our last podcast about the drinking with clients, I said it's never the big stuff, right? It's always the small. It's always the small
Because
changes.
we overlook it, though.
Yeah, because we overlook it. We don't think much of it. You never think to audit
yourself
and be like, well, could I get a better deal?
Right.
Now, there's a difference. Like, if you're doing it for pennies, I don't worry like that. Like, that's beyond my scope of, like, care.
Okay.
If I'm going to save $1 or $2, it's not even worth the hassle. We're talking about substantial. Like $50 a month, $100 a month adds up. It's times 12.
Yeah.
That's not just, it's $600 a year or $1,200 a year if you do 50 or 100. Like that's money, man. That's money that can go into this family trip. And you could take those savings and say, I'm going to designate half of that every year to a savings account for going on a trip. And rather than going on a big trip every year, you could go on a big trip every other year and supplement that year with smaller trips. Why does it have to be Hawaii every year? Go to the beach here. Go to San Diego. Go to Vegas. Go somewhere.
You think it's possible for someone who works a minimum wage job to be financially stable just by investing most of their money and saving?
No, they won't have money to invest. The problem is, and we'll cover this in a different topic, is, and I say this all the time, it's not a wage problem. And before anybody in the comments starts going crazy,
I know, it's a touchy
just let me
subject.
finish.
Yeah.
Because we know those people who are like heard 1 second and they're done. They're not even going to listen to the rest. It's not a wage issue. It's an inflation issue. The average rate of inflation is 2.3%. In the last 4 months, we've gone.
It's terrible.
It's 5.6.
Yeah.
We've doubled almost the annual. We have doubled. We're beyond double the annual average rate of inflation annually in the last couple months. And it just keeps going up. You could make $10 an hour, and if the rate of inflation is low and the cost of things around you are just as low to match that wage, you'll be fine. You can make, I wasn't making minimum wage working where I was working, and I still here and there was like, man, these things are expensive. Because the problem isn't wages, it's inflation. You could make $50 an hour. If you made all these people who are complaining about wages, give them $50 an hour, you know what's going to happen around you? Everything around you is going to be to match the wage. And it's going to overinflate that too, because the problem is that it doesn't stay 1-to-1. It stays, and you know, I did a presentation to a university about this actually, and we'll talk a little bit about it. But I asked, how many of you get crap from your parents or your grandparents about when they were your age? And we're talking about people who are like already in their mid-20s, early 30s. When they were your age, they already had a house. Their wife was the housewife, and they had 3 kids. And all of them raised their hand. And I go, and how many of you hate hearing that? And they all keep their hands up. And I go, great. That's not really possible in today's day and age.
And when you tell your parents that, they get offended and they get mad.
Right. Because they don't understand those kinds of things. But it's like the wages have relatively stayed the same since the 90s and 80s. And yeah, they've gone up a couple bucks here and there, but the cost of living has grown exponentially, where it's like they were having $50,000 homes at 20% interest. Like our parents were, if you ask your parents what was your interest rate back in the day, they'll tell you some ridiculous number. The 17, 20% interest rate on a $60,000 home. The point is, they were making $40,000, $50,000 a year, but because the cost of living wasn't as high as it is now, that $40,000 was worth more. You ever seen where it's like on TV, you'll watch something and it's like, oh, he made $10,000 a year, and that inflates with inflation, that equates to like $16,000 a year. Have you ever seen stuff like that
on Twitter?
Like, think about that.
Yeah,
10 grand 10 years ago is worth X amount of dollars now, and like the wages stayed this relatively similar, but the cost of living. My insurance company, my homeowner's insurance, calls me and goes, we have to increase your rate. And I go, for what? And they go, because your cost to rebuild your home, the insurance that you have, given the current state of the economy, we couldn't rebuild a home for that cost. And I go, okay, that makes sense. But I asked a question. I said, I have a question for you. And they know I'm in finances. And I said, but I have a question for you. Will it readjust itself when the economy goes back to normal and the inflation starts to deflate?
and the answer was no.
The answer was no. So companies take advantage of these type of policies where like things are going crazy and going crazy expensive, and they make adjustments to bills, to insurances, to match the current state of like the world. But then when things go back to normal, guess what? They keep the price where it was. And that's how it is for everything. That's just how it is for everything. So it's like you're complaining about making more money when you don't understand that we should be complaining about why the rate of everything keeps going up and then staying up. I understand when inflation goes up, cost goes up, but the deflation happens too. And when deflation happens, great. Okay, so now we need to bring costs back down, but that's not the case. I don't see milk any cheaper than it used to be.
Bacon, weenies, it's all
Everything.
expensive.
Everything.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, well, people are used to paying it, so we'll just keep it that way.
And supply chains are out of whack right now. So
They're disgusting, and that
Yeah.
we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Getting this and the other one here on the wall is nearly, it took months because of supply chain issues
you
until
know what?
I finally.
But this looks nice.
Thank you. Actually, shout out to Minuteman Press in Palm Desert. They were able to get this done for me
there
in
you
like
go.
less than a week.
Nice.
It was crazy. So, little plug. They didn't sponsor us or anything, but maybe we should go back and ask them for a
We
little
gave them a
check.
shout out.
We give them a shout out. They're great.
Yeah.
Shirts, company logos, banners, flyers, stuff like this. Like, that's awesome. You know, we're happy to do business with them. Because at the end of the day, it's okay to spend money if the quality is good. But, you know, that's pretty much, I think we've covered the basis of budgeting. I don't know if you have any questions before we're at 45 minutes here. You have any questions before we close out?
I don't know.
Okay.
We're good.
Well, we appreciate everybody listening. Once we finalize this one, we'll probably take like a half-hour break, 20-minute break, and then get ready to do the next one. And the next one's going to be about client retention and the importance of spoiling your clients so that you don't lose your clients. Super
Looking forward to that.
That's Give it like 20 minutes.
Sounds good.
We want to thank everybody for listening. If you're interested in choosing the next topic, check out our website at www.mitm.services. Our membership allows for members to choose topics. When we reach out to you, we say, hey, we covered your topic. What would you like to be your next topic? Follow us on Instagram, MITM Business Consultants. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We appreciate everybody's time and hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we just want to tell you thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, everybody, take care. We're going to do the outro.
Thanks for listening to Man in the Middle. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing to the show. If you can't wait till next episode, follow us on Instagram at MITM Business Consulting and online at mitm.services. There, you can learn more about what we do, how we can help, and the custom services we offer around your personal needs. Until next time, if you'd like to choose the topic we discuss and receive additional services, consider joining our membership program at mitm.services.
Disclaimer. Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast.
We look forward to you tuning in next time.